Jai Hind, Khushbu. Today we are going to touch on a very important, facet of 21st century, warfare, item, the microchip, semiconductor, or see the chip, the people say. A very important thing, because that is going to be the major resource. It will cross all energies, whether we call it, it is oil, gas and all. It is one of those, component which is now the major thing for the world economy, global economy, and also for the geopolitical power. If you have to have that power, this will be there. And how, when we talk about how microchip war has unleashed, and will it restrict Putin, in a Russian-Ukraine war, so that the war comes to the halt, or it will go in the favor of the West or the NATO, the way that it has been unleashed. We will quickly go through it. First thing to understand what is a chip is for, the people who are, they know about it, but understand. When the chip started somewhere in came in being 1960, approximately 60 years back, that is the time. The major thing is a transistor. The transistor is to be in a chip. There used to be 4 transistors in 1960, and in 2022, the same chip has got 11.8 billion transistors in one chip, and that's why it has become heart, mind, blood, breath for the global economy and geopolitical power. Now to understand that, how this chip is being used for, this power, for this economy, and also as a main component of, in a fighting of, any conflict, a resolution, and as in the military, domain. Revolutionary in military affairs, when it started, this chip is a component, no one thought that, the way it has been distributed all over the world, in a particular area, how it's going to affect it. It has been unleashed now, by the West, by the NATO, and they are looking forward how it is going to affect and restrict, the operations of in Ukraine. Basically, when the Russians will be using with the scarce resources, because everything starting with the missile, rocket, aircraft, submarine, you name it, anything, there is a chip, there is a requirement of chip, and there is a shortage of chip, and it is concentrated in very few countries with the world. But quickly, let's see that. Now, microchip industry. This industry, as say that by 2030 in 21st century, it is going to cross more than $2 trillion industry, and as on today, 75% it is concentrated in Asia. 75%. The first is Taiwan with 41%. Is the number one. And that's why when we see China-Taiwan conflict, the China can't go and do anything, because the Taiwan has got 41% of manufacturing, assembling, designing of this chip at Taiwan. In number 2 is the South Korea. Is in number 2. Japan is on 3 with 19 or 17% of the total manufacturing of chip, with China 15%. And the Chinese realize that they have ignored this, and they they allowed others to grow in this area, and they were also invested along with Japan in the microchip. Now the China wants to, especially Xi Jinping, wants to have the complete and wants to have the domination through the chip industry, which the world is restricting in this area of Indo-Pacific. With the China, they are not, and there is a direct conflict between China and United States of America as far as this is concerned. Over and above, Hong Kong, Singapore, Thailand and Vietnam and other nations, especially in Southeast Asia, Asian countries, they are manufacturing and assembling and designing chip in a bigger way. Now we'll come down to United States of America. United States of America, as we see, in 1990, 1990, it started in 1960, and 1990, 37% of the chip manufacturing design was based in the United States of America. But they lost it out because they this is what their strategic thinking, thinking ahead in the future, understand what is going to happen. They lost it out because they thought that they will have the alliances with many other countries, especially with South Korea, Japan, and Taiwan, and they will have the cheaper labor and cheaper, the globalization, cheap economy and all. As on today, it is just 12%. And that way now America has realized under Joe Biden and big, they want to become the major designer, manufacturer, supplier, everything in United States. And there is a direct fight with that. Now, where is the India stands? India lost it out. First 50 years, we have not even thought of the chip manufacturing, because in spite of that, we have got the designing, brains with us. We lost it out. And now, only we have got 10 companies with, in 2021, we have got, thanks God, with 2.7 billion industry, worth of industry which we have got. And we are planning by 2026, it will go down to 64 billion out of, $1 trillion economy, which this industry will have. And we want to become the leading company, may not be number one, but there is estimate is that India will able to do it and reach 2% of the total, they will have the capability. But the way the things are happening with China going down, and in India in a better way, because here will come along with Israel, we first company is coming in Gujarat. Now what is happening in Indo-Ukraine, Russian-Ukraine conflict? What is happening? This has been used, and there is a thinking by the West that because everything, missile, rocket, ships, aircraft, any war fighting weapon and equipment and machine, and the intelligence, it requires a chip. So the Russia, because they have also ignored and they do not, but the world doesn't know how much they produce and design. There will be a shortage at one time, and if the war, if the conflict is prolonged, they will not able to have all this, the modern weapon and equipment. They will have a scarcity of that, and the conflict will go in the favor of the West on the NATO. But there is a catch here. There is something called cryotron gas. The cryotron gas is very, very important, and that is the leveraging of the Russians. Is concentrated in the Russians in these areas, the way the gas is there in a huge quantity in the Siberian ball. Here they have got, and cryotron gas is very important to produce the laser light, because that requires, this is the only light requires other to assemble a chip, which is 11.8 billion transistor in one chip. So it is much required, and they are holding this is area, and it is also available in Ukraine, eastern part and southern part, which they now they have taken it and annexed it in that area. So it is a matter of time when we'll see, because there is a lot of undercurrent that chip will hinder and restrict Putin to carry out the operation. Let's see, the time will tell whether they will leverage with the cryotron gas, because a number of the industry, especially in Asia, is ready to do that. If the India is also steps up and India gets into the picture, our ambitions is there that we become the leading number one, and India has to focus, put its mind and design and money and our brain power to produce a chip which is much better, much faster, and much more powerful it is. Thank you.
Thank you, General Sinha, for your in-depth analysis. Viewers, if you've enjoyed this video and wish to see more such videos, click on the subscribe button given below.